I would like to thank through you people Google about their describe image feature. That is the best feature that I love for the year 2024.
So for you, for the apps, the description is one thing that sits at the top for you, right? This
Yes, sir.
and that's is that are we talking talk back here? We talking lookout or we talking Gemini?
Describe image of talkback, sir.
Okay, yeah, I think that that probably sits on the top of my list as well when we're talking about apps. But another one though that I really like in 2024, and you guys know where I'm going. It has been my favorite now. That 11 Labs reader, I think is probably one of my best apps of 2024. What do you guys think about that? I really like that thing. I've been using it a lot.
The problem with playing with tech all day is that I don't have a lot of interest after hours to play with new apps, and so I have to say I have not tried it out, although I've seen the messages about it. So I look forward to playing with it at some point. Like really when I'm not at work, I spend a lot of my time outside or hiking. So, uh, but yeah, I look forward to playing around with that. I think what's got my interest now is a lot of these apps that are allowing for more live mode. Um, and so you're doing like the screen sharing, like with GPT and well, even the Gemini Studio.
I
Uh,
love that.
but I think like these things are going to be fairly powerful, and they're just in the beginning stages right now in what they're able to do. But as soon as they start giving more live descriptions and doing some other things, I think like those are going to be very powerful.
Yeah, I think I would agree. I mean, ChatGPT in live mode could kind of hallucinate a little bit, but I think we are in totally different place. Um, I think I would actually prefer Google AI Studio over ChatGPT when it comes to video calling. But wow, they're so nice. I mean, they always help me like in kind of matching colors. Sometimes applying makeup. It's just so nice.
Yeah, I was
I
playing with the.
mean, I mean,
Go ahead.
imagine it's just the Flash model. There's gonna be the Pro model. It's gonna be even more powerful. And like, if the Flash model can do so much, just imagine how much Pro and or Ultra will be able to do.
Yeah, I was playing with the Flash model of 2.0, and I was pretty impressed. I was just like walking around with, using the camera and having it describe things to me. And I was like, what room am I in? And it would say, it looks like you're in a living room. And then I'd say, what about now? You're in the dining room. What about now? You're in the kitchen. And then I said, describe the buttons on the microwave. And it kind of gave me a general description. And then I was like, no, I'm blind. Describe the buttons on the
I
microwave.
love it, John. I love it.
And then it was very
Yeah, that's
specific.
what
So
it
there's a
is.
display. There's a split display at the top, and then there's a row of 4 round buttons from left to right. It's this. It described the whole layout. And then I said, is it light outside or dark outside? And it said, although there's no window in your current view, you walked by a window earlier and it seemed to be daytime.
Yeah, it
And
remembers. It's
yeah,
so
and
good.
That is
It
so
memorizes
nice.
things. Yeah, it is
yeah,
very
Well,
nice. I mean, I would
imagine
ask
that
him.
mode that you're
Yeah.
in when you're constantly prompting it, but imagine where when it gets to just giving you these automatic descriptions. And I think that
yeah.
is sort of where we're kind
Mhm.
of headed, and in some ways what the live sharing the screen
Yeah.
chat GPT
It
mode,
feels like it's gonna get really great. Like it's not
that is kind of where we're
perfect
headed. Yeah,
because
it isn't perfect. One of the issues that I've seen is, and it makes sense why it is this way, but a lot of times when you ask it for specific information, it is transposing it because it is giving you the layout based on the camera's
Mhm.
perspective, and so therefore like left and right get transposed. So there's some issues with that. Of course, hallucinations. Sometimes it won't pick up things the first time, and then when you ask it the second time, it'll say, "Oh yes, you're right. It is
Yeah.
here."
Yeah,
And then
it
if you
doesn't
ask
seem
it
to be.
again, then it'll say, "Oh, yes, you're right. It is here,"
The
even though it's
problem with
not.
that is that you can't trust it. So basically, I was asking
Right.
ChatGPT to read something on the screen, and then when I said, "Okay, but I'm sure that it's there," it's like, "Oh yes, it's there." So I had to make sure using something else that it's actually correct and it's not hallucinating.
Yeah, I asked it to keep an eye out for something. That I'm talking about the Google Gemini. I said, "Have you seen a kid's juice cup?" And it said, "No, I haven't seen it." And I said, "Can you keep an eye out for it?" It said, "Yeah, I'll let you know when I see it." And then I was walking around, and every once in a while, it would say, "Still haven't seen it." And then, but when I got it in view, it it didn't say anything. It just wouldn't tell me. So it was acting like it was going to, but it didn't for some reason. I had to hold it like right up in front of the camera, and there was nothing
Yeah.
but the cup in front of it, and it still wasn't saying anything. I said,
It's
"What
not
about
doing
Yeah,
that
now?"
right now,
that's what
but I think
happens
that
with me.
is very much like I can't speak about what is coming in, but
Yeah,
that is kind of where we are headed. So
yeah, I feel yeah, exactly. Like I said, it knows what it's going to be capable of. Let's just put it that way, because it pretends like it's going to do something, and it
Yeah, and I
doesn't
think we're
work great.
expecting something from Be My Eyes when they implement that into their app. I think that's where, because the API usually is prompted differently, and that's what makes it even more powerful. So, for instance, if you give a picture to ChatGPT, its description is going to sound different and less detailed than if you give it to Be My Eyes. So that's what we're expecting, I think.
it's all about the prompting and the models. And
Exactly.
Yeah, it
like
has the
Be
custom
My Eyes
prompt
is using
attached.
GPT. Yeah, it's custom prompting.
It is, but it's custom prompted because of the API.
You know, it's interesting that you mentioned both the Chat GPT. I always have difficulty saying that thing, GPT, you know, and, you know, Gemini. So I was reading this article yesterday. I was being lazy. And this guy was, you know, pointing why, you know, Gemini, you know, has a leg over, you know, Chat GPT now. And I can see why he was saying that. But frankly, I like what you are doing, John. You know, say, hey, keep an eye out for something. And so this is a very good feature. We were at the store,
Yeah.
my wife and I, we went to Home Depot, and I'm like, I think we need to get a new stove or something, because I don't like the drawer under the one that we have right now. And so we're looking at, you know, those induction stoves, and, you know, they're all touch screen and all of that. And I'm like, you know what? This is where it's going to be perfect for me to use my Gemini to be able to read these things and all of that. So, John, you are describing that microwave and all of that. I mean, of course, I'm going to probably going to wind up labeling it with some Dymo labeling tape and all of that. But I can see the use of Gemini or Chat GPT in trying to identify those buttons. So I'm really excited about where we're going when it comes to these things.
Just make sure that when you're using when you get the Dymo tape, before you get the stove, that it is that you can make sure that you can actually touch the tape without activating the screen. Some appliances now, basically, as soon as you touch it, it is activating buttons. And so you
Yeah.
don't have
So
the
I
ability
think
to
what
actually, you know, feel around for the correct buttons, something like that. So
yeah.
uh,
I think what we're gonna do is, you know, before we plug it in, we're gonna put on the labels. So
yes, but I like, if you have an opportunity to check it out in the store, just make sure that there is some level of force that's needed to activate the buttons, because otherwise, if
Yeah,
you're
because
just
if
putting
it's
tape
Yeah, you
on it, as
wouldn't
soon
be
as you
able to
touch it,
read the
it'll
label.
activate it.
yeah, that's how my dryer and washer are, and I have to like put the labels, or I just use bump dots, but I have to put them like off the screen,
Off
and then
the
I have to
screen.
find the dot and then move down. Yeah.
Right.
yeah,
You
that
know,
makes
just
sense.
you have to figure that out. But I've been playing too with the offline models. I have a beast of a laptop, and so I've been doing a lot of things with the offline models and just custom prompting it. And I was using it for doing like tax stuff and just getting those documents in an accessible format, and like it's a really powerful stuff. So I think,
Oh, I enjoy voice cloning stuff.
yeah, yeah.
And, you know, talking about 11 Labs Reader, you know, my favorite app of 2024, you know, they've implemented the podcast feature just like what we have in Google. And so I gave it a book to, you know, do a podcast on. and it was actually very interesting. So there's an American girl and a British guy. It was such a great thing listening to that stuff. And like,
When I
wow.
listen to the blind Android users, when I go and check out the episodes on YouTube, those are done by 11Y Labs. Is that what you're saying? You guys didn't actually do the episodes?
Yeah,
They did not. Yeah,
exactly.
they're cloned.
Exactly. So, but no,
I wish that would be a lot easier.
yeah, so that would be nice though. But it's really interesting see where we're going. That human like like two people discussing something. It's just my book that I just fed to it, and it's just unbelievable. It touches every part of the book, and oh my goodness, I couldn't believe how that thing was working, but it worked really well.
I've been
And
trying to run them offline because I'm like, I don't know if I really want everything passed through the cloud. And it's amazing how powerful of a machine, like this machine is a beast, and even that sometimes struggles to run some of the more powerful models. And I'm like, I'm gonna have to look for a machine next or add 128 gigs of RAM.
well, maybe this is why we're not going to be seeing some of these things coming natively on the phone. I mean, offline, but
No,
at
like
least,
this thing's already
yeah.
running a 4090 graphics, and I think it's got 64 gigs of RAM, and it's still sometimes bottlenecks. So I'm going to have to get more RAM next or something. I don't know.
So, Nimar, here's the thing that we've been crying about, and it is still part of the apps. You know where I'm going, my TTS engine. I would love to, have some of
Eloquence is
those.
not coming. Sorry.
No, forget about eloquence. I'm not worried about eloquence. I've long forgotten about eloquence, but I'm talking about, I want those, like assistant or Gemini voices, to be customized to where if people want to download those and use them as their, some of the voices for talkback, oh my gosh, that would be awesome, So,
Yeah, I think so. I sent a message in response to the message about here, and I'm not here on behalf of Google or anything. I'm just here kind of just having a chat here personally. But I will say, if there is feedback about that kind of thing, and there's enough people that feel very strongly about it, no matter who the company is, the more voices, the more likely it is to be heard. And so I would say submit that feedback, submit it often, get as many people as you can to submit it. What I will say about those cloud voices, though, is that they are fairly different from TTS, or they're more meant to be natural, very much like you can't speed them up. They wouldn't do very well sped up in any kind of way, and they're generated basically in the cloud. And so I think trying to bring those to TTS to a screen reader, while I'm not saying it's not possible to do, it would not be something that is going to be easily done. In general, the various operating systems have separation between like cloud TTS and whatever. And like just because you can do something, again, like if you did allow a screen reader to use the cloud voices, if your internet dropped out, then you'd have to have a really robust mechanism to switch back to some kind of offline voice. And
yeah,
there's a lot of considerations behind it,
yeah.
but I will
There would
say, like I
also
said, if
be
there is
lag.
a requirement for that, or if there's a need or a want for that, please, the more people submitting feedback, the better.
Okay, Nimr, I have a question for you since you mentioned the voices. Well, I don't care about the online voices at all as voices for the TTS engine. But, well, you feel free not to answer because I know you are not representing Google today. But what about the new quality voices that some people are getting and some people are not getting, and they are only working with TalkBack? And I'm not from the people who are getting the voices. Although there's my nephew's phone, he's getting the voices. We are in the same house, and we are getting yeah. I'm not getting the voices; he's getting them. So what's the deal about those voices? And is it like Is the plan to have them only for TalkBack for now, or what's the thing? Actually, they are Google always confuses things with the implementation, with the rollout. So what's the deal? If you can talk
Google
about
always
this.
confuses things. Yes, Google always confuses things. That is very true. But I will say that the voices that you're referring to, so in general, there's a push to do two things in TalkBack. Number one, increase the responsiveness, and TTS is one way of doing it. There's a lot of other things, but TTS is one issue that causes latency. And so if you can reduce the latency, then the other problem is of quality. And if you can increase quality and reduce latency, then you're kind of getting more to a point where people like the voices, or at least are able to better tolerate the voices that you have, and they're not switching away to some other TTS engine. And so when companies roll out updates, a lot of the times, especially larger companies, they roll things out in a very staggered way. It's usually to a small percentage of users. And over time, over a number of weeks, possibly longer if issues are found, those updates roll out to a larger group. And then the other thing is, in respect of this TTS, it is all, at least at the moment, it is very much language dependent. And so people who are using, for example, US English right now will see the voice in a staggered layout where not everyone is getting it. And there's not really any way to force that. It's just like a certain percentage of people that run a certain thing get it. And the reason that's done, by the way, is to allow for, let's say we release code and yeah, we did have testing on it and people did test it, but there's a lot of things that happen in the wild. People use it in different ways. People use it on a lot of more devices. So let's see, we start seeing more crashes. Well, it's a lot better to have maybe 1% or 10% or whatever, a small number of percentage of people with crashing devices than it is to have everybody with crashing devices. And so a lot of times these things are done in a staggered layout or a staggered way to allow for, to just make sure that when something is released to a wider audience, it is a lot more stable.
So I think though Kareen was looking at the confused screen reader. So it used to be that in the past, because they used to taunt me about this, that this thing, the confused screen reader. I'm talking about the commentary screen reader, or Joshua. God rest.
Yeah. So there was a mode when you slowed down the talkback speech rate, it would default to the higher quality TTS voices that are the system voices. And that was disabled for talkback, and I think that was ultimately because of feedback that people didn't like the voices when they switched, and people got confused which voice, when you played the samples, which ones were playing, and I don't know, there's some issues behind it. But again, if and I know commentary does that as well. Still, it does that, and probably other tools will do that. If the speech rate is slow enough, it will use the higher quality voices, and if they're sped up, it'll revert back. But again, if there's more demand for higher quality voices or lower latency or whatever issue it is, I would say, this is the blind Android users group. It's got about, I don't know how many, last time I checked was what, 600-700 people signed up to it, something like that. Anyway, the more people that submit feedback, the better. And so if you can get people on board with that people are that people think, oh, this thing sucks, for whatever company, and I'm not representing Google right now, but whatever it is, then I would say submit that feedback, and then get as many people to submit it as possible, because otherwise company just figures, well, it's maybe impacting 1 or 2 users. People don't really care about it. Most people are happy with it. It's fine. We're not going to fix it.
Yeah, that makes sense. And this is why, that feedback is very important. If you, the good thing though is also that there's always that feedback within the app. And I think we encourage people to, use that feedback from within that app. And
Yeah,
I'm
when you
sure it
submit
goes
feedback through
somewhere.
the app, it does. It does several things. When you submit feedback through the app, it sends metrics for logging. And so if there are specific issues, it's a lot easier to diagnose it. But also those issues get sent directly to the teams. And so, for instance, if you ever go through any company's disability support, sometimes what you'll find is, depending on the agent, maybe they're a little bit confused, or they didn't have as much training, or maybe the feedback doesn't end up in the right place, or maybe it takes them a long time to respond. You can kind of avoid a lot of that by just submitting the feedback directly. When you submit it in the app, you can figure out it's going to the right place, it's going to the team that can look into it and action it. And there's a lot of feedback that is submitted, so you may not hear back, but I would say your feedback's definitely been received. And then the other thing is, when you do submit it, tag it. Make sure that people are aware this is an accessibility issue, so you can put in the subject, or even in the beginning of the description, oh, this is accessibility or A11Y or whatever it is, and just make sure that it's tagged, so that teams are aware that this is what it is. And then, depending on, like, if it's a large company or not, like if I know sometimes I see Warren reaches out to developers, that's always something he's done. If it's a smaller company, especially, you always look at the contact information. You can get that from the Play Store. Especially for a small developer, reach out to them. They're not always going to make the changes, but if you give them some concrete feedback, this is what's happening. Here's a video recording. This is what I would like to see happening. Here's maybe some logs, if you can figure out how to collect logs. Whatever it is, like here's accessibility scanner, direct them to that. Maybe here's some developer guides. Maybe you want them to implement accessibility actions. Here's developer guide for implementing it. Like, the more you can help them, I find that a lot of times they will do it. They may not do it right away, but they will get to it. And some of them are really interested to help out. Sometimes they just won't, and that's just unfortunate. But that in that case, the more people that reach out to them, the better.
Well, what I have noticed during the years is that like those individuals who are working on their apps, who are not in companies, who they are just so much cooperative compared to the big companies. So we are able usually to have better communication with those developers. We are able to convince them about accessibility, and sometimes they are not aware of the accessibility. And when they know what's the screen reader, what's the stuff, they are usually more likely to work on the issues and fix them. However, with bigger companies, it's usually, unfortunately, although they have more resources, they have better capabilities, they are not willing to work like as they should on accessibility, including Google itself. Well, Google.
Samsung, I'm looking at you. Samsung,
Yeah,
I'm looking at you.
Google has the resources, and we are always seeing how teams, like, you feel like Google teams are not really collaborating with each other. Like, the accessibility team is in one place and the other teams are in other place. So there are serious issues that shouldn't be present in the apps that big companies release. I'm talking about Google, and I'm talking about ChatGPT, like OpenAI and ChatGPT, the big company, the huge resources. And now you look at the app, the Android app, they are not really doing anything. They're just, the accessibility is deteriorating. Like, okay,
it's getting worse.
So as an outsider, that is looking into a company, I can understand why you're saying that completely, 100%. I can understand why you're saying that. As somebody who works not only in a company, but also works along with other companies and have reached out to other companies, I can tell you that, yes, there are resources. Yes, they do want to hear about accessibility. They are committed to accessibility. However, they do have a much, much larger scale of things that they work on, much larger scale of people that that need to get involved in doing accessibility. For instance, there's not really, at Google, everybody's doing accessibility. there's no there's a central accessibility team, but they're not doing what you think they're doing. They're not working on this and that, and like for example, like Google Meet. All these various products have people within them that work on accessibility. Their teams at Google, I would say for the most part, and at Microsoft and other big companies, they are very motivated to do accessibility. A lot of times the company requires that certain accessibility standards are met and followed, and that they have a certain percentage of bugs fixed, and or they have a certain number of like products that meet certain guidelines, et cetera, et cetera. But as I said, they do have a lot that they're working on, and so to consider that, oh, they're going to take one person's feedback and jump on it immediately, uh, that's not realistic. And a lot of bugs, again, as an outsider, you think, oh, these are like very easy things to fix, and maybe as a single developer, you don't have to worry about what other teams are doing and whatever else. You're right; they should be maybe easy to fix. But in a very large scale, your one fix could possibly break somebody else's fix or product or something else that they're working on. And so, yes, accessibility teams in large companies do work together, and teams in general do collaborate together, and they work with each other to make sure bugs are fixed. Certainly, you know, I know that happens in a lot of companies, and in general, I would say there's a lot of motivation to get things done, but also there's a lot of red tape and bottlenecks at a large company. To release any amount of code takes a long time at any company. A lot of like stuff I remember this was years ago. I I think like before even I joined Android, I was playing around with some prototype or something. I think it was Braille keyboard. I was playing around with that. We didn't end up releasing that code for about a year and a half, maybe 2 years later. And there's a lot of reasons behind it. Um, there's a lot of reasons why things like that happen, but essentially to get anything out, it's a lot of quality control, a lot of reviews, a lot of testing, a lot of like translation, this, that, a billion things that go into whether or not you can actually release something. A bunch of reviews, is it going to conflict with something someone else is doing? Is there an update down the road that you have to consider that might break what you're working on? And therefore, do you want to wait a little bit until that comes out before you release something? That it is not it's like I applaud, like, commentary, for example. I think it's what, one individual, really a couple of individuals working on it. You can do a lot as a single person working on something. Yes, there's a lot to do, but you can easily do. You can pretty much do whatever you'd like to do. And when you work at a large company, it doesn't work that way. And that it doesn't matter how committed they are to accessibility. And it's not just accessibility, by the way. It's a lot of other, like, some features. It's like you test out some features or something. And then the other thing I was going to say is, we're talking about Gemini and Chat GPT, and the app, the AI app is broken. Well, it's broken because right now there's a lot of competition in the space, and there's a really this demand, this push to kind of move as fast as you can and break things because you want to get ahead. And so what that means is that some of these processes along the way get thrown out the window, and so you do end up kind of running very fast and releasing things, and those things may or may not be working properly, or may
Something
not be
get
broken.
broken down the road.
Exactly. And it's a lot easier to break things when you're doing that, and it's not realistic that you're going to test every single line of code and every single, like, there's automated testing, there's manual testing, but if you're releasing things every other day, things break. And so
Yeah.
I think that's affecting a lot of companies right now that are working on a lot of these AI tools. And whether you think that's good or not, that's like, there's either I think these companies do one of two things. They either run really, really fast and break a bunch of things, or they move so slowly to the point that you don't actually think they're doing anything, even though they're actually doing quite a lot behind the scenes. It is not like a single developer, but I understand as an outsider. I really do understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, but Nimmer, here we are talking about facts, about things that are here since years. Like, there are things that we can't give excuses about them. Like, it's okay, we can't justify that. Okay, we have priorities, but we have also the inclusivity, we have also some standards that should be respected. I'm not talking about like something which is minor. I'm talking about major things like buttons in a window, like the camera button in the ChatGPT app. Don't tell me that it will take a lot of time for them to fix this. And another thing, actions. Like,
I don't agree with you that it doesn't take a lot of time to fix that. This is a large company that we're talking about, and different product owners own different parts of a product, and sometimes they're using frameworks. And those frameworks, you need to fix something in that underlying framework that they're using. Yes, technically, yes, programmatically, yes, labeling a button is very easy. I'm not telling you labeling a button is not easy, but I am telling you that there's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes under the hood that can result in a delay in fixing that little button that you think it's just a really big deal. But also it comes down to company processes. And again, if they're moving really fast, it's a lot easier to break things. In general, if they're following their own tools, typically these tools provide warnings when buttons are not labeled. And certainly the automated testing should be catching some of that. I can't tell you why specifically Microsoft has this thing that's unlabeled, but I can tell you in general, working at a large company, even things that seem like, oh, you should be fixing this very quickly, it can be fairly difficult to actually fix very quickly.
So is it normal for Google, for example, to develop actions and create them and then include actions for iOS? I mean actions on Android, and then implement the actions of the iOS operating system,
look, I'm
and
not
then not add
representing
them
Google
to
right now.
Android. I mean,
Kareen, I'm not representing Google right now, but I will
Yeah, I
tell
mean,
you
yeah.
there's a lot of philosophy behind how actions work. But this is what I'm telling you. If you really want your feedback to be heard, submit it. But I'm not here to argue about whether or not Google should be implementing this or should be implementing that. All I'm saying in general terms is, as an outsider, I can understand where your frustration is, but when you look at what these companies are doing, it becomes very clear why certain things take a lot longer than they should take, and that isn't. It may not be very clear to you, and then certainly in a lot of cases it's beyond a lot of people's ability to understand, and a lot of companies just don't want to put that out there, and they don't want to disclose these things. But in general, like, there's a lot of reasons why things take longer, and sometimes they shouldn't take longer. Sometimes processes did break down, but in a lot of cases there's a lot of really good reasons why you can't just fix something very quickly.
Yeah, I do understand that, as a user, these things can be frustrating, yet in the same breath, I understand, where the companies are coming from. And if we're going to be honest with ourselves, I think we've come a long way from what it used to be. I want to give a shout out to the companies for where we are now, right now, when it comes to accessibility. A lot of things have changed over the years. And so we
My
need to give
personal view
credit
is that
where
actually
credit is due.
accessibility in a lot of ways is getting worse. And so, if you follow me like and some are very social media, my personal view is that in a lot of ways, accessibility has stagnated and or gotten worse. I mean, the fact that we were talking about appliances now, that you can't even go buy an accessible appliance today,
Yeah,
that
so
everything is touch screen. There's not a single,
exactly.
you can't, when you go buy something, it's not based on its features. It's not based on whether or not it has something you like. It's based on, oh, can I make it work?
Yeah,
And I imagine, like, I'm thinking to myself, well, a lot of people are like, well, the tech company should fix everything. Well, okay, so they give you an app, and maybe you can control your oven with that app. But one day that app gets updated and accessibility breaks, and
it's
you're in the
gone.
middle of cooking
Yeah,
dinner. Then
exactly.
what are you going to do? How are you
So
turning your oven off?
yeah, so exactly. So here's what I was trying to say. Like I've always said, no one goes to bed, in these companies thinking of us. Make no mistake, none. not one goes to bed thinking about us. Or, companies like that induction stuff that I was looking at, they didn't think of blind people when they were doing these things. Of course, because, the whole world is not blind. The majority of the world is not blind, or the majority of the world
And the
doesn't
hard
have
part
legs.
is that if you didn't think of people from the outset, if you didn't plan for them, if you did not develop it in mind with them from the very beginning, from the
It's
very
hard to
design
retro.
stages,
Yeah,
it is very difficult to go back after the fact and say, oh, well, yeah, I'm going to implement accessibility. That
that's
takes
why.
a
Yeah.
lot of effort and a long time to do, and it's not very simple to do.
And that's what I'm saying. No one goes into these things thinking about us. And I give an example of that stuff. So now, if you're trying to retro it, well, you're going to try to maybe try to use an app to do that. But physically, the stuff is not usable to me because, number one, it does not have a speaker somewhere that it's going to verbalize, the buttons for me. So you see where the problem is. We as blind people, or those of us with disabilities, I think we will always have the short end of the stick because the rest of the world is not like us. And it's a problem. But like I was saying, we've come a long way. There are certain things that also we have to be thankful for, that we've seen some improvements and all of that.
And
But
I do think
it's going to be an
government can
ongoing
legislate
battle.
this a little bit more. I think, if you have standards that say, yes, every device has to have certain ways of doing tasks. And I think that's in some way like the European Accessibility Act and some of these other things. They're trying to do that. It's very slow. It's going to take a long time to implement, but like I think there's some ways that you can legislate that, enforce companies, but also, like when you force people, people get very resentful about it. Like, why should I have to do it? What? Let me find all the ways I can get out of doing it. It's too expensive. It's this, it's that. So you really want to try to buy people's, like, you want them to do it because they want to, but I think Warren's right. Like, people don't go to sleep thinking, oh, well, I need to do all these things for blind people. They're not really thinking about us. They're
Yeah,
not
no
thinking
one thinks
about
about us. No,
discriminating either. They're not thinking about I'm going to do the wrong thing. They're
no,
thinking
I
about,
don't think
they're
so.
not thinking about it at all.
They're
It's
trying to
not even
sell
in
a
their mind.
product, to the
Exactly.
world out there. But, talking about European, so when I was in Paris and we went into a pharmacy, and I was blown away. I don't know how to read French, but I was surprised. They have Braille on those bottles everywhere. I'm like, this is absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, we have it too. Yeah.
It blew me away. Wow.
So that's the thing.
But
Like, you can legislate that. If you can have a country, you can have a government, you can have whatever that says that you have to have these things. Then it becomes a lot more cheaper to do, and companies can mass produce it easier. And it's something that it becomes normalized. If you mandate, oh, every device with a screen has to have some kind of screen reader, has to have a speaker, like, these things become normalized. And yep, I think in the beginning maybe it's challenging. You got to figure out exactly how to implement it, but at some point it becomes like, now you cannot buy an ATM machine that does not have screen reader built in. Every ATM machine has a screen reader built in, and I think this thing that was legislated.
we
and
still have some which don't. So yeah.
I'm speaking generally in the States.
Yeah.
And also like elevators in the States in general, for the most part,
Yeah.
like elevators to have Braille. Now I go to Taiwan, and in the building there, they have one elevator that talks, the other ones don't. And when I asked why, they told me it's because they don't like them making a lot of noise. And so you have to hope that
Oh
you get on the
yeah.
one that talks. And in the hotel I was in, one elevator out of all of them had Braille, and you had no idea which one was going to show up. So if you got on the ones that didn't have Braille, then you're sitting there guessing which buttons you're going to push.
Oh my
So,
gosh. Yeah, that could be a
I
nightmare.
think, like, in some ways the US here is ahead, in other ways it's fairly far behind, and I think that's the case of a lot of countries. But it really comes down to, are there rules around it? Are there some guidance? Like, is there guidelines or companies have to follow? And is there, like, enforcement if they don't follow it? Something bad happens. That, unfortunately, that's kind of sometimes what it takes to make things to happen like that. So.
Exactly. So we were at that store, going back to that Lowe's, Home Depot. And so we were doing a self-checkout, my wife and I. And, this thing was talking, but then I'm like, okay, how do I know which button is what? You know what I mean? It's just, so it's part of the problem. So sometimes the solution is kind of like halfway there. They're just doing the basics, but then, it leaves a lot of questions to be answered. And it's just, like I said, it's going to be an ongoing thing until we get to a point where the development, takes that into consideration right from the get-go, or else you can retro some of these things perfectly. And it's going to be a problem for the foreseeable future unless something monumentally take place that addresses
And I
this
think
type
like
of
tech
problems.
is this way as well. And tech companies are trying to solve some of these things with band-aid solutions, but in a lot of ways, tech is also part of this as well. Like I see now there's meta glasses, but the next versions of glasses, I believe, are going to have a display. Actually, some already do. And that is worrying to me because once you add a display, you're going to be able to submit a lot more information that way. And therefore, is the rest of it, is it going to remain to a point where everything is verbalized? Is it going to remain as accessible, or are we going to lose access to the glasses? And these things are things I think about. Like it, the meta glasses are only as accessible as they are because they literally don't have another interface. They're meant
Yeah.
for audio glasses.
Yeah. Well, you're so when you talk about that, so I went to a little study about the MetaQuest, glasses, or, display, or, AR, whatever. It's a gaming thing. And
Right, those are
frankly,
not accessible.
yeah, they had to be used with with an iPad or something. And so I was sitting in this study for like 2 hours and, doing this and that. And I'm like, well, so for me as a blind person, yeah, this thing works in conjunction with this, but how do I do it without an accompanying device like the iPad that I was using in trying to navigate the thing? And the lady said, yeah, it makes sense, and that's why we want people to blind people to play with these things and let us know about the study. But yeah, so I think that if they continue to improve on these things, and like they
I think like
do.
one of the issues companies face, they don't have enough people with disabilities that get involved in very early stages and working
No.
throughout in design, in development, in testing, in whatever else. And the other problem that they've got is that there's not really, there's not really a school that you go to learn how to do this kind of thing. So when you go to hire somebody, how do you know that the person you're hiring actually has the skills for the things that you're hiring them to do? How do you know that they're actually going to give good feedback? How do you know that they're actually going to do the right thing? And you know what? Even amongst ourselves here, we cannot agree on what the right thing is to do half the time.
No, we can't, because what matters to you matters little to me, and what matters to me may matter little to you. So I can see where that is, but I think I've always said that if you have someone, at least for starters, it's good to have someone from that disability group in there as part of the team, and then we'll be getting
Absolutely.
somewhere.
But then it comes down to which disability groups do you represent? Can you find people from all the disability
Well,
groups?
we should have people from all the disability groups.
Right. And then does the
And
company, depending on the size of the company, do they want to hire, like, I don't know, 500 different kinds of people to work in design, to design one product? It's a tough thing.
it's a tough question, but like I said, though, I think that we've improved a lot in several ways, and then like you said, in several ways, some things have kind of stagnated. So it's just an uphill battle that I don't think is ending anytime soon.
I can't let the episode end when we are talking about apps without mentioning the PiccyBot application. I talked a lot about this app, but it's really it was something good. It started as the first app that could describe videos using AI, of course. And I know now we are going to the era of the live stuff and the ability to describe things in real time and stuff. But I think that video description in its like basic form is still something useful. And the one that started the video description thing on Android and iOS was the PiccyBot application. So the app, for those who don't know it, it's an application that uses AI models. You can specify the model that you want to use, whether it's one of the Gemini models or GPT or Claude or others. And it describes the videos after you upload a video or share it from YouTube or Instagram. So it gives you a description, and then you can ask follow-up questions about the video or specific scenes. The app is free, but to be able to customize it and to use the model that you want, you have to use the Pro version, which is, by the way, $20 for the lifetime. I think it's really fair pricing, and it's just for anyone who is able to support the developer by purchasing the app. It's really priced reasonably, and it's not at all expensive. Well, I think this app deserves really a big kudos. It deserves appreciation. I hope that the developer will be able to continue working on the app and maintaining it, and that he will be able to get the support he deserves. And yeah, I think it has a potential because, well, AI is capable of doing video descriptions. Yeah, the hallucination and stuff of AI, but it's a general thing. But overall, the ability to give meaningful descriptions is present. And well, I reviewed the app before, and I'm still using it, and I'm still impressed by what it is able to give. So I ask you all to test this application if you haven't done already. So it's a great one.
Oh yeah, speaking of that app, I was really positively surprised that it's relatively cheap, the lifetime subscription, because like I mean, those models aren't cheap, like the API access isn't cheap. So how is that guy like paying off like that stuff with that little of money? Because I mean, it's not really much we are paying for the lifetime subscription.
Yeah, so we had this guy on here, Martine, right? I think that's his name. Yeah, he's really doing a good job. And you know what? The thing that impresses me about it, he's one of the early pioneers, back in the day when we had Google goggles, and then we had the talking goggles, and that was coming from him. I didn't know it was the same person, and so I was so flabbergasted when he made it known that he was that same person. We're talking back in 2013 here, and it used to be that I really liked that talking goggles because it was doing a real-time thing, so I was able to read things on the TV because sometimes you have an advertisement and they say call this number and they're not reading that, and so this app was able to do that, and I was so excited about it back then.
That's it. Like, sadly, some of these new apps that were like going back and we're reinventing a lot of the stuff that existed and then we lost, and now we're trying to figure out how to get back to it. And I don't know, in some ways it's frustrating. I know, like I keep going on about the Nearby Explorer, and
I know you are a big believer in that Nearby Explorer. And this Nearby Explorer is great.
There's just no other alternative to it. There's nothing else like it. So it's, it was a big loss.
Yeah, so I can see how that is. But so see, this AI thing, started a long time ago, but we didn't know it was AI. You asked me. So really, we have the pioneers, people like that, and Google goggles and all of that. So I'm excited.
Well, a lot of companies have been using AI and working on AI stuff for many, 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 many years. And I think it took. I think like ChatGPT was great at marketing, right? It came out, or OpenAI. OpenAI was very good at marketing. And
Yeah.
they're like, oh, look, we're gonna create a chat bot, and it was all
Yeah,
about
but
like
it's no
AI,
longer
AI,
open.
AI. But a lot of these companies were already doing very similar things. They were using it for like call centers. They were using it for companies. We're using it for so many different tasks. AI for a lot of different things. But it turned into a race when some company, OpenAI, figured out how to market it properly and how to get users a little bit more excited about it. And now
Bring
it's
it to the
like
masses.
this big
Yeah.
race and to turn. But a lot of this stuff, like the AIs, a lot of the stuff's been around for a while now.
It has been.
Not really
You know
new.
what's really bothering me though is the fact that, a company like Apple, for instance, would come and tell you, "Oh my God, we're gonna give you writing like AI writing tools, and they're like very new, and you're gonna have so much fun." Where
And Apple is very
it's
good at marketing anything. Apple, you know what? Apple,
yeah.
I've always said this. Apple, if they came out with a new pair of socks, they could sell it, like with this, because it was the best pair of socks that you've ever worn, and it has such like the special padding, and it's a special material, the special nylon, and it can be basically the same as a
Yeah,
$2 pair of
they're not
socks,
gonna be
but
as
they could
smart
sell it
socks.
for $200, and people would love it and buy it, and it would be the best thing in the world. I think Apple is just really good at marketing.
They are
That's
very good.
just
You're talking about, $10. I mean, even a sock that you can buy at the Dollar Tree, would be this. But like I've always said, Apple could grab some dirt and say, "Oh, this dirt is very good for you." People are going to buy it. Apple says it. It's
I
Apple
a
would be
mean,
lot
really
of
good
companies
as a medical company.
a
I think
lot
they
of
would sell
companies have
very.
their fans, but Apple is very good at marketing.
I mean, you don't
unbelievable.
need to search for long because you have the microfiber gloves, which is expensive. Yeah, really
Yes,
expensive.
yes, yes. They do sell those. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's not compatible with other devices and devices from other manufacturers. You need to remember about that.
Unbelievable. Yeah, but yeah, PiccyBot is such a great app. I know I got it the lifetime. The thing is that I haven't used it, but I happen to be, someone that gets these things. But like you were saying, Potato Boy earlier on, you're wondering how the guy is able to sustain it. But so some of us don't use it often, and so it kind of helps that I haven't actually used that thing at all. But I like the fact that it's there, and probably it's the first
Me
one.
too, honestly.
Yeah, it's the first one in that class to do video, and so I'm so thankful to the guy for doing that. And now you will see others catching up.
But I just saw that selection of models and stuff, and I was like, yeah, I have to have it, and I just purchased it right away.
Yeah, it's very good. I just need to play with it more.
I think CAI jumped on that same train of video description, but it's terrible. It sucks, I have to say. But it was definitely a first. PiccyBot, whatever, was a first.
But is it picky about videos you upload?
I don't know. I think does it maybe has to be a certain size. Kareen, you might be the one to answer this.
No,
Does
that's a
oh,
wordplay, man.
okay. I got it. I got what you mean now. I got it.
Yeah, but going seriously regarding this point, or regarding the comparison between the two apps, I won't repeat what I said in the podcast before and what I said in my comparison article. If anyone wants to read the article, I will be like, I will. I would like to from you to read the article and to get the comparison, or what's different between the two services. Each service works differently. Like, for example, PiccyBot takes the video and uploads it to the service, and then the service gives you the description, including the audio. So the audio is included in the description thing. However, with Seeing AI, things are different, because with Seeing AI, you are getting, or the video is uploaded as frames, as scenes after each other, without the audio, and it's synced with the audio after you get the description. So for example, you will hear a part of the video, like the first scene, then it will pause, then it will tell you the description, then it will play again, and then it will describe the other scene like this. So this is an important difference between the two. And
It's similar to Jisho, what Jisho does when describing videos, but it's less dictionary.
no, Jisho does this completely differently, because Jisho is taking the scenes, it's taking the stills, but it's not giving you a relation between the scenes. So it's like describing this image.
But I mean, it takes screenshots as well. That's the.
Yeah, but it doesn't do any sensing between the actual video
and
the image that it's giving you.
Unfortunately, no.
Yeah, at all. It's like it's continuous recognition, but it's not that good, because if you don't give a relation, if you don't make a relation between the scenes, you are not really describing the video, because the relation between the scenes and how they are progressing and stuff, this is very important in the description. So if you miss this point, you will not be able to give a good description. So this is the problem with Duo. So yeah, but well, as I said, this is one difference between the two. I don't want to take more to discuss this, but let's put the
but I think another difference
link in the show notes.
Yeah, I think another difference as well would be the fact that in PiccyBot you can actually share a video from Instagram or somewhere else, but with Seeing AI, it has to be a video like in itself. Like it can't be like a link. It can't be a YouTube link.
Exactly. So. That's right. And the follow-up questions as well. You can ask follow-up questions with PiccyBot. You can't do it with Seeing AI. And because you started discussing this thing, so let's talk about the other difference, which is the internet connection. It should be very good when you're dealing with Seeing AI, because it will just give you about 30 seconds. If it doesn't upload the video during this 30 seconds, it won't continue. It will give you the try again message. Or with PiccyBot, it's more flexible. It just waits and waits until the video is uploaded. So this is better for people who are having unreliable connections. They know about it. The Seeing AI team know about this problem, and they were trying to fix it. However, I'm unsure if they will be able to do it or not, or what they are going to do. But this is a real problem for people who are having problems with the upload speed.
Yeah, Microsoft take ages to resolve a problem. Going back to what Nimr and you were discussing a while earlier.
I have to agree, actually.